And hello, RJ. Hello, Sarah.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Hi, sir.
I'm going to give Facebook a minute or two here to just notify people that we are live. As I always say in these, to make sure nobody misses any part of the conversation. So if they miss me, it's okay. They can always come back later and see it. Couple quick things. Warwick's is located for anybody that RJ, where are you calling in from? Where are you from?
I'm from Chicago.
Okay. My daughter lives in Chicago.
Elmhurst, outside of Chicago. I spent this week, 2 years ago, I was in La Valencia with my daughter.
Okay.
Walked right by your bookstore. She's not much of a bookstore browser, but
yeah.
We spent time right in the neighborhood.
Yeah. I just have to point out that I'm from Chicago, so.
Okay. My daughter just bought a house in LaGrange.
So that is right down the street.
Okay. So we've got lots of good connections going on here today.
I got married at La Valencia, RJ.
Really?
A great hotel.
Here it is.
Yeah. It is so
many threads.
A lot of connections going on here today. I think we're going to have a great conversation. So for our people who maybe are joining us from Chicago, we are located in La Jolla, San Diego, California. My little sign says 1896. So we are celebrating our 125th anniversary this year. Yeah.
Bravo.
So, yeah. And I say this too, and I know people are getting tired of hearing me say it, but we had a historical novelist on a few weeks ago. She's all, think of everything that Warwick's has seen in those 125 years,
right?
You know, and survived.
Yeah.
You know, 2 world wars, 2 pandemics. Now we're still in the middle of one, but you know, we'll get through this one. So yeah, so you know, one of the things that we're known for, obviously, is bringing wonderful authors to San Diego. So even in the virtual world, RJ, welcome. Welcome to virtual.
Wonderful to be here.
Yeah. So tonight, I'll be putting RJ's book into the comment section. I'll put Sarah's in there as well, so you can easily click on that. If you're in the San Diego area and you want to come by and shop, we'd love to see you. But easy to ship the books to you. I like to say anyway, there is to get a book. You can get it from Warwick. So if you're in the mood for something in addition to RJ's book, you can you can add all kinds of things to that cart. And there's ways for you to participate tonight too. So if you put your questions into the comment section, we won't be bringing those in live. Sarah and RJ are going to talk for about 35, 40-ish minutes, and then I'll bring those into the conversation afterwards. So no question's a bad question. We love having all the comments and questions. So with that, let me introduce you to RJ and Sarah, and we will start the show. So RJ Hoffman was born and raised in St. Louis and received an MFA in fiction from Columbia College, Chicago. Hoffman's writing has appeared in Barely South Review, The Sun, Harper Pallet. Is it Pallet? Am I saying that right?
I think so.
Okay. The Roanoke Review. I thought it had like maybe a French thing at the end of it. I don't know. I was like, oh, should I be giving it a
do whatever we want. They're not listening.
Booth and lunch ticket. He is the winner of the Madison Review's 2018 Chris O'Malley Prize for Fiction and a finalist for the Missouri Review's 2019 Jeffrey E. Smith Editor's Prize. He lives in Elmhurst. We were just talking about that with his wife and 2 children. He's here today to talk to us about, okay, here's our screenshot, everybody. His debut novel, Other People's Children. Such a great, it's a great cover. It's a great book. I can't wait to hear all about what you guys have to talk about with it. So with him is Sarah Z. Sleeper. Sarah's novel, Gégine. God, I do this every time. Gégine. I always want to put a J on it. So Gégine. I need to just like mark that out. Sorry, Sarah.
No worries.
Came out in 2020 to glowing reviews. Her short story, A Few Innocuous Lines, won an award from Writer's Digest. Her nonfiction essay on Getting Vivian was published in the Shanghai Literary Review. Sarah's poetry was published in A Year in Ink, San Diego Poetry Annual, Painters and Poets, and exhibited at the Bellarmine Museum. Prior to completing her MFA at Fairfield University in 2012, she was a business and technology writer and winner of 3 journalism awards. So with that, Sarah and RJ have a great conversation. We'll see you in about 40 minutes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you so much. RJ, hi, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. It's so good to speak to you. We got to speak briefly the other day and found out that we have a few things in common. So it's really super to be talking to you today, just the day after your book came out. How are
Right.
you feeling about that?
That was exciting. I went to bookstores and I looked at it and I held it in my hands and then I went and drank a bunch of gin.
Nice. That sounds that's the writerly thing to do, actually, I have to say.
It seemed like the right thing to do at the time. I'm going to
Yeah.
go.
Very exciting to see your book on the shelf, isn't it?
It is. It is. It's it was so great to just get my author's copies and be able to smell it and see it.
And
And
hold
then
it.
a friend found it in a Barnes and Noble in Michigan last week, and so I ran over to the Barnes and Noble here. Of course, it wasn't there. So it was my
Oh.
third trip before I saw my book. I'm a little bit needy, I guess.
No, this is the time where I think adults are authorized to take selfies with their book. So I think you should be doing that. That's just the way it goes, because it's a very exciting thing. I want to say to everybody that I read the book before it came out. I was lucky because I got an advance copy to be able to do this conversation, and I enjoyed it so much. It is poignant. It's full of visceral description. So for people who really like powerful writing, you need to note that this book has so much metaphoric language and descriptive language. It's really, really beautiful. And of course, it tackles a very large topic, which is the subject of adoption. So first of all, thank you for the book, RJ, and thanks for letting me read it in advance.
Thank you for reading it.
It was so fun to read. And before we get into sort of the elements of the novel, I think people would love to know a little bit about you. I know you used to work in the IT world, and I'm curious about how you transitioned from the IT world, technology, into the writing world. And I also have to note that I did the same thing.
Right.
So it's an interesting parallel, but how did you make that happen?
So I was lucky enough to, or actually I was dumb enough when I'm good at quitting, I guess is a good way to start this part of the conversation. I got a job out of college with Anderson Consulting. That's where you're supposed to stay for 15 years and become a partner. And after 8 months, Bob Knott and I, a friend of mine, quit and started, writing software in his apartment, and grew that over the course of almost a decade into a company that we then sold. And we took a bit of time off and then bought another company and grew that. And that was sold about a year after I quit in order to go pursue the dream of learning how to write a novel. So my story is one of quitting.
Quitting in order to succeed at the next thing.
Quitting is just a wonderful place to be, where you're choosing the next thing. And that next thing for me, when I was 47, and I'd always been a reader and always wanted to be a writer, and decided that I was lucky enough to find myself in a place and where my family could survive with me doing that, right? And so I decided that forever doesn't, always doesn't last forever, and I always wanted to do it. So I quit my job and went full time back to Columbia College Chicago to pursue my MFA.
That's a bold move, and you really made a powerful decision when you decided to pursue your dream. And I think a lot of people watching will really resonate with that and respect it. I know I do. It's a great choice to pursue something creative that you've always wanted to do.
It ended up being a good choice. I kept quiet about it for quite a while. I was kind of sneaky. I would tell people that my rule that I made up for myself was to tell people that asked me how work was going. Then I would say, well, I'm actually going back to school, and they would say, oh, for your MBA, and I say, no, for my MFA, and they'd say, what is that?
What's an MFA?
And so it was definitely something that I was very, very excited to do, but there's also a lot of personal emotional risk in doing something like that, right? It's something that you know, I've always wanted to do, but it's also something that very, I feel very, very lucky to have my book in print and know how rare that is. So
we're going to definitely talk about that a little bit more, but I want to tell you that I also went back to grad school at 47 to do my MFA.
Okay.
So there you go.
All right.
Smart people apparently make this decision.
It's all about the quitting, Sarah.
That's right. I quit also, and it worked out so far. But so we talked about this the other day. You know, I know for me, everything changed for me when I did that, everything. My whole professional landscape and my whole community of peers changed as a result of doing the MFA. How would you say that doing that has changed your life?
So, you know, I think that yeah, I've met a bunch of great folks through the MFA program, and still, you know, connect with a number of them on a biweekly basis to read work and react to each other's work. And in a lot of ways, my life didn't change, right? I still live in the same place and have the same friends, and like I said, most of them didn't know that I was trying to write a novel until I said, "Oh, I got my novel published," and they said, "You're what?" And
What
so, it was, in a lot of ways, it didn't change. I think, you know, one thing I learned about myself that I wasn't expecting to learn. You know, I was in IT consulting, and that can be somewhat stressful. And I was running this software group, which I spent all day talking to people, answering emails, on phone calls, and one thing that I didn't realize is how much energy I got from other people. And you know, even if I sometimes came home and complained about, you know, what went on at work, there's still all that interaction, that energy that I got from other people was missing. And I needed to find ways to make sure that I still connected with people, because I'm that weird kind of introvert extrovert that can sit in front of the computer and, you know, make up stories for, you know, 5 or 6 hours a day, but then I need to talk to people. And
Right.
And that's, you know, that was I think one of the big learnings that I went through, is that summer after the first year, I was like, it was Tuesday, and, you know,
You're in your home office.
4 hours, and it was 4 o'clock, and you know, the rest of the people that I knew were all working and going home to their family. So,
You know, I'm going to say that I think the combination of introversion and extroversion is an excellent thing for a writer to have, because some writers are so introverted that they can't be comfortable, let's say, doing something like this, because there's so much in their mind and not comfortable with other people. So the fact that you can do both, it's going to be great for your career.
okay, well, I won't quit this one for a while.
But I also know that it is lonely, or I don't know if that's the right word, but it's a very solitary thing, right? Writing, you're just by yourself. And
Yeah.
people sometimes interpret that as, you know, you're snacking your way around the kitchen or something, but well, which might be true. I know it is for me, but you know, you're in a very focused state. So that time, even though it's alone, it goes quickly, right?
Yeah, you know, and I find that, especially when I'm writing new material, I can work for 4 to 5 hours before it, you know, the words just all kind of look the same, and it stops being productive. And you know, I should know who said this, because I'm going to steal her words. It was a writer who wrote about writing a novel, and it came out recently, and I'm going to just steal the idea. She talked about it being a, you know, kind of, you know, you have to slip beneath the membrane into the story. And actually, this was in her novel she wrote about, and it really resonated with me. And the interesting thing that she also said, so you got to kind of struggle to get underneath that membrane back into the story, and find your place where you were the day before, and get back into that world, get back into that character's head, get back into that drama that the plot is working through. And but she also talked about, which I found even more interesting, is sometimes she stayed underneath that membrane too long. And I've experienced that as well, where it's like sometimes I, you know, push it to 6 or 7 hours, and I come back and I'm in that cranky mood and can't get along with my family, and it's just that I've been out of the world for too long. And
Right.
So there's I felt that was that metaphor really resonated with me as far as my experience of finding my way into the story and then back out of it. So
Right. That's a great way to think about it, because it's immersion, and even it's not skin deep, it's below the skin of your characters or in the skin of your characters. I think, I can't remember who said this, but somebody said, walk away from the writing when you wonder what's going to happen next.
Okay.
Like, because then when you come back, you're like, you want to know what you're going to write next, leave yourself with your own writing cliffhanger, as they say. But that's fantastic that you're dedicating that much time to it, also because I know a lot of people say they can only do like 2 hours at a time before their brain. So your brain is clearly more honed on concentrating than some people, for sure. 5-6 hours is a good long time.
It is. And all my friends who are working 8 to 10 hours a day, when they say that, they're snickering.
Yes, but it's not as concentrated, right? They have meetings, and then they have an email, and then they whatever. But yes, it's a big difference working in a professional corporate setting, I think, for sure. So I want to also just say bravo for your contract with Simon & Schuster. People watching may not know this, but this is not the norm that you go to grad school and then immediately get a big publishing contract. So talk a little about how you accomplished that, because I know that you did it by intelligent pursuit of your goals. It wasn't a willy-nilly haphazard thing. You pursued it in a very sharp and refined way. Talk about that a little bit.
So I guess it starts with the novel, right? I kind of went into school knowing that I had 4 semesters to write a novel and get feedback on it, and that was the time I was going to get, I was going to get instructors like Joe Mino and the rest at Columbia that would give me the feedback that I needed. So getting that done in those 2 years was really important. And then, I found one database that told me which agents. I wanted to try to get an agent in New York, and the backup plan from that was to start, look into indie labels, and the backup plan to that was to enter contests, right? But the first, the big lottery ticket is getting the New York agent and selling to a New York house, right? And I didn't expect that. I fully expected, the 5,000. I didn't expect. I hoped for. Let me say it that way. I hoped for, and my best case was I got that $5,000 to $10,000 advance, and then I got the permission to write 2 or 3 more novels to get to the place where somebody like Simon Schuster would look at me. And so I found a database of agents that were reading, and found another database of agents that were selling, and created a Venn diagram of those 2 databases. And
did you make a spreadsheet?
There's all kinds of experiences from my past that were put to work, and I came up with about 45 agents and refined it to the type of novel that I wrote. And then I learned that agents want 20 pages, so I made sure that those first 20 pages ended on the edge of a cliff, and I worked really hard to get a bunch of short stories placed in literary magazines. So I had some same inquiry letter, and then sent it out, and the most didn't reply. About 6 of them read it and rejected it. During that process, Harvey Klinger, the agent that I ended up with, he sent me an email saying, I liked it, but it needs a bunch of changes before it's ready to go out, and would you be willing to do that? And I said, hell yeah. And then he told me a bunch of stuff I didn't want to hear, and I made all those changes and made it a better novel. And so that was all. I think that the exciting thing, if I'm a writer listening to this, is that, that old send stuff off to New York and hope it lands in the right hands, that still works, right? You don't have, I didn't know a soul in New York. and this wasn't, this didn't come through a connection. And so that's kind of exciting that it still works that way. And he signed me in, I think, January 8th, and 1 week later he had a deal with Simon Schuster.
That's a brilliant story. So
That's
good.
the part where it still gives me chills.
It's amazing. And it gives people hope that if you pursue your dreams, but also apply professional rigor to the way you pursue them, you have a better chance of it happening. And I'm so happy for you, because I think that's just fabulous.
Thanks.
Okay, let's talk about the book. So first thing, can you tell me just a short synopsis of the plot? And for people who haven't seen it, the book is Other People's Children here. And go ahead and tell us what it's about.
So Gail and John Durbin moved from downtown Chicago to the suburbs when Gail gets pregnant. And then after 3 miscarriages, in spite of the toll that takes on their marriage, they decide to pursue adoption. And meanwhile, Carly is a teenager from a working class town nearby who finds herself pregnant. When she decides to place her baby for adoption, she chooses the Durbins. And Marla is Carly's hard-bitten, abusive mother. She regrets the adoption and is angry about the adoption soon after the Durbins take the baby home. And she pressures Carly to reclaim her child. And kind of in the center of all this, Paige is the social worker who makes the adoption happen. And then she's the one that tries desperately to not take sides as everything unravels.
I got it. Okay, so that's a powerful cast of characters, a powerful story. So many people interested in the way adoption works or doesn't work. You yourself have adopted children, if you don't mind my saying that. How much do you feel that your
Somebody's internet connection isn't working.
Did we lose? I think we lost.
Okay, I think I know the question she was saying. I'm just going to answer her question, and she's going to look thoughtfully off into the distance.
Yeah, I love that. I'm hoping that she realizes that she's frozen. There, she's back.
Don't worry, I know what question you were going to ask. I've already started.
And I was in the background and I was going, "Oh, there's a silence." So maybe we'll edit this part out. I'm leaving again. See you.
Okay.
I guess the thing to say is that this isn't my story, my family's story. Right? My children were adopted internationally, and so the drama that was experienced, we didn't go through this, and we chose to adopt very early in the process. So we didn't go through a lot of the other things that the characters go through on the path to choosing adoption, because we wanted to do that before we started trying to have children. And but some things that are central to this novel is, I think we know what it means to wait, right? And they're even in an international adoption where the process is a little bit more predictable. It still is razor's edge for a long time, and you don't really know what's going to happen until it does, and you certainly don't know what it's going to be like. So that waiting that is present, and especially at the beginning of this novel, is something that comes from experience. I think also central to the novel is the Durbins bring Maya, the one person that I didn't introduce, who doesn't say any words because she was only 5 weeks old when the novel ends. But when Maya came home, they felt just immediately in love with Maya. And I went through that same experience with my children. It's not something that happens over days or weeks or months. The person at the adoption agency or the orphanage or wherever you happen to be places that baby in your hands, and that's your child. And it's a visceral and immediate response. I think Gail in the book says it's akin to waking from a dream into a bright light, and it kind of felt that way. So I think those are the things that from our adoption experience inform the novel, and obviously there's a whole bunch that's just made up.
Right. Well, so speaking of visceral reactions, I would love it if you would read a little bit, because I'd like for people to hear the tone and style of your book and the way you write, because it's just quite powerful.
Okay, well,
Mind
I've got the book right here.
You want this one? Oh, okay.
So I'll just read a short passage, and it's from John's perspective, actually. Just to set things up, John and Gail have just met with Carly for the first time, and they're waiting to hear from Paige to learn that whether or not Carly, based upon that very awkward meeting they had, was going to choose them.
Okay.
He'd spent the last 4 years learning to hold both the hope and the fear at once. Lately, the fear seemed to have teeth. It always started with the mundane. What if he dropped the baby? What if he fed it the wrong thing? What if it choked or spiked a fever, or he laid it down for a nap the wrong way and it never woke up? It helped to think that Gail would be there. Gail had read all the books and the websites, she had made lists, but inevitably he'd be left alone with the baby. And what about when it started to crawl? What if he forgot to close the gate at the top of the stairs? And of course, he would learn to walk. What if it escaped and got hit by a car on Myrtle Avenue, or just wandered off and got lost? And if all that wasn't terrifying enough, what if something happened to Gail? What if she got hit by a car, or got cancer, or fell down the stairs? And it wasn't just a few hours while she was at the gym or at the store. What if he was expected to raise a child on his own, like his mother tried to do after his father left? What if the same dike that broke in her and flooded her with helplessness gave way in him? What if that terror that swamped him now was already eroding that dike, softening it, destabilizing the silt? Gail squirmed, kicked off the comforter, and then settled to a tense stillness. John blinked at the ceiling. It was almost 11 when Gail's phone finally rang. At first, Gail didn't move, but then she answered it just before the fourth ring. "Hi, Paige," she said, her voice pregnant with expectation. Paige talked and Gail listened. John lay still, terribly aware that he was about to plunge toward fatherhood, or that Gail was about to dive into another tailspin. His body felt cold all over because he wasn't quite sure which to hope for.
Wow, that is so powerful. So many emotions and so many things people can relate to about parenthood and expectation. Wow, I just got a chill when you read
And
that.
just for the record, I'm not John.
I,
My wife is not Gail. I'm not John. So
it's fiction.
that was very important for me to tell her that before the first time she read the.
To tell your wife that?
Yeah. Because they do live in Elmhurst. He is from St. Louis.
Right.
You know, he was in IT, and that's where it kind of ends, right?
Right.
And that first draft had John cheating on Gail, so
Whoops.
it was really important that I tell her that
Yeah, that's not me.
was not.
This is fiction, not memoir.
And from this perspective, I was always looking forward to being a father.
Okay.
John was.
Yeah, John has more mixed.
Yeah, he's ambivalent based upon some of his experiences as a child, and some of the
Right.
things as a child.
Because his childhood, his mom wasn't the best, so he
was terrified.
he's terrified. And speaking of that, what you just read was from John's point of view, and it's interesting. It's worth pointing out to the audience that this book is arranged in chapters, each from different people's points of view. So the main characters of the book, John, Gail, Carly, and Marla, and Paige, each have chapters throughout, and it alternates between the people. What made you decide to pick that particular structure, if you will, where you have multiple points of view, chapter to chapter?
So, a couple things. Number one, I just enjoy writing that way. I think one of the things that drives this book forward is suspense. Yes, I worked hard on the characters, and I worked hard on developing a story that captivates. But I think one of the the thing that comes easily to me, that I have to work really hard at those other things. And the thing that comes easily to me is creating suspense and pace. And one of the easiest ways to do that, or one of the most effective, maybe is a better way of saying it, is to right when you find yourself at a very important part with one character, to switch to another. But more importantly, I think the story, the way it fleshed out, right, it started out as John and Gail's story, but quickly became, once I started writing Carly's chapters, it became Gail and Carly's story. And I think one of the guiding principles that drove the book was to and what I read on the Goodreads reviews is that people are rooting for everyone, or rooting for different people at different times. And
say that one more time.
They're rooting for different people.
Rooting. I thought you said reading. I was like, oh no.
and I think that was the intention. And I think that if I'd done it from a first person perspective or a single point of view, and from an omniscient perspective, I think that it would have been harder to really have the reader relate to both sides of this conflict. And just when you say, oh, Gail's got to have this baby, and John too, I guess. Right when you hit that point, then you're back in Carly's head and in her experience and in her subjectivity, and then you understand where she's coming from. And even Marla, who is a difficult character to like. If there's a villain in the book, it's Marla, right? But she comes at it from a place of her motivations are pure, not quite pure, but pure-like.
Purish.
And purish, is that a word? I think it's
puri.
But then she acts upon those motivations in ways that are mostly damaging. Right? And,
yes.
But all of this, you can't see it from their side unless you're in their head. And I think the story demands that you see it from both sides.
Right, or from all the sides,
both sides of the tracks and both sides of the adoption process.
Right, and from inside the adoption, from the Paige, who's the facilitator of the adoption. Yeah. She has her own point of view, and that's an interesting one too that I bet a lot of people don't think about. But it's interesting because Gail, who is the prospective mom, she is a compulsive list maker. Yeah. And she works in her family's knife sharpening business, which is interesting and gave you all kinds of metaphorical use of slicing words and ratchet and things, which I found fabulous. And then another character, the teenage mother, pregnant gal, comes from, she comes from a rough background, and she works in a pizza store. I'm curious let's talk about Carly for a second. How did you decide that Carly should be, I don't like the term from the other side from the wrong side of the tracks, but let's just say she has a more difficult.
It's from a working class town.
Yeah, working class, but working class with a harder edge. Yeah. That's not always that pleasant.
Yeah.
How did you decide on that background for Carly?
So part of it was at the beginning. I read somewhere, or one of my professors taught me that in fiction, there is, using a socioeconomic divide always increases tension, right? And it creates a kind of a baseline of tension that the other notes can then mingle with, right? And so there was a conscious decision at the beginning and there are, the realities are that people in Carly's position that come from wealthier families have more options than Carly has.
Right.
And so there's a certain reality to that, right? And so that was kind of my starting point. And then, I had to work hard at John and Gail in developing their characters. Carly just she just came right out of the pen onto the paper, and I kind of discovered Carly just by writing about her, and
Mhm.
she I hate when authors say this kind of crap, but I'll say it. And my friends will laugh at me later, make fun of me, and that's okay.
That's what friends are for.
I followed Carly into Morris, and I followed Carly into the pizza parlor, and Carly told me who she was. I had to invent who John and Gail were, and reinvent and rework and work harder at that. And Carly just she kind of sprang from whole cloth, if you will. Much more than pretty much, and Marla kind of jumped out too, but Marla's a supporting character, and Carly's central to it, and she just told me who she was. There's a scene. Her first scene is from her point of view. She's in it's winter. She is in a community college class. She wants to be a nurse, and they're going through Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and she's learning it by relating it to her life, and her water breaks during that experience, right? And this is pretty early in the book. So
The irony there is very interesting, because it's hard to worry about spirituality when when you're
yeah, she was. I think it ended with, and she was still baffled by that triangle at the top. But, and she, but I was like, I wrote that chapter, and I was like, and that chapter kind of stayed just like it is. And I wrote that chapter, and I was like, okay, I need to know a lot more about her. She needs to tell me who she is, and so that's where Carly just came out of the pen.
So it's interesting, out of all the characters, you do write in the minds of two of the male characters, mostly John, but you also write from another character's point of view at a certain point, but Larry, which we're not going to give any spoilers about.
We're not going to.
I'm very interested in why you feel that Carly was the one closest to you, or the one who you got most invested in a way. I mean, you probably have never been a pregnant teenage girl.
I have not. And I felt her struggle. And I'm not going to try to compare it to my life or anything like that. I had so much. I think of what it was is I came out of the chapters with Carly with so much empathy, right? That sometimes certainly John can only sometimes come out of those chapters with empathy, and sometimes you're like, I'm not really so sure like what I think about John, and Gail the same way, right? Sometimes you're right there with her, and other times you're like, oh, Gail, come on. Right. But Carly, the mistakes she makes are 17, 18-year-old mistakes, and you have to have empathy for that. And
she seems the most likely to change.
She's at a place in her life where you end up changing more often, right? And it was fun to see what happened with her.
It was great to see this character with potential, to make life choices, to choose a different path. So that was really a beautiful thing to see. I think people are going to have a strong reaction to this book, whether they have adopted or are parents or not. And I know you're not trying to teach us a lesson or anything like that, but when you were writing this book, what did you learn? What sort of emotional truths did you learn as a result of putting this story down on paper?
Yeah, I'll start by answering the question that you didn't quite ask, right? This book is not about adoption for me, I guess is what I would say, right? There's no indictment of any of these characters, and no indictment of my family. I was blessed to build my family through adoption, and it's the best thing that ever happened to me, right? And so, let's start there. And there's lots of ways to make that happen, and I have no opinions about what the right way to do that is. So let's put all that aside.
Mm-hmm.
And, for me, the book's the book is about expectations, and my daughter went through a hard time. She's 18 now, and shortly before I quit my job, and gosh, maybe there's something related there, but she started going through a very difficult time, and we all kind of, as when you become an adult, as you grow into adult, you have expectations about what your life is going to be like and what your family's life is going to be like, and those expectations are sometimes met or sometimes exceeded, and sometimes you have to reset expectations. And I think that's what I didn't exactly answer your question. That's what I was processing as I went through this.
You did answer the question. You're talking about people having expectations of how a child will be or how a life will be. And as we are an adult, things do not happen the way we expect.
Right.
So that's a very human emotion, to have a disappointment or some sort of a reaction to something not turning out how you expect. So I think people will really relate to that, because I don't know anyone who hasn't been through a thing like that.
It happens to all of us eventually.
It sure does. It sure does. Hi, Julie.
Hi. And that's what's going to make this such a great book club book.
What?
We must be running out of time. Julie's back.
Julie's back.
Are we in trouble?
I feel like I'm in trouble.
Julie, where's my ruler? I need my ruler. Slap people's hands. But yeah, that's what's going to make this such a great book club book, because there's just so many nuances and different, people relating to it on so many different levels. In fact, we've got some comments in the section here that Sarah Reader, she's looking forward to reading the book. It's their book club pick for May. So that's excellent. And Jennifer said her copy just arrived. Mary Beth Wiener's on here. And Sarah asked if you were from St. Louis, and you answered that live. And yes, you are. So here's my question for you. And if anybody has any other questions, go ahead and put them into the comment section now, and I will get those to RJ as best I can. I'm popping on two different screens. So it's, let's see, Grandma McCain read this book in 2 days. She's 92 years old. That comes from Diane McCain. Is that somebody you know?
That is somebody I know. That's my wife's grandmother.
Excellent.
And
love that.
Grandma McCain, if you're watching, I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm working on the sequel fast. All right. I'm working on the next book fast.
That's the thing that always happens. It's like we're here. Let's hold it up again, just because we like holding it up. Yeah. Let's hold it. It's so funny because it just came out yesterday, and then everybody's asked, well, when's the next one? What are you working on next?
My daughter keeps on saying, Dad, I don't want you to become a one-hit wonder.
Yeah, no resting on your laurels. You got to
That's
hop
right.
to
She
it.
reminds me every day. So
Yeah. So working on it for so release for next year or 2 year? 2 year probably. 2 year release.
yeah, so who knows, right? I've got to sell it. I've got to sell it to Mary Sue again, right?
There you go. Oh, Mary Sue's awesome. Love her. She always picks great. She's got some of the best authors. She
was a wonderful editor. She is a wonderful editor. And
yes.
That series was wonderful. I hope I can tell her.
Yeah. I have to thank Simon & Schuster for allowing us to host you this close to pub too. It's always fun. And it's always fun. I love hosting debut authors because it's always so fun to watch and be there. It's like, oh yeah, we were there at the beginning. We watched that star rise.
So my daughter is demanding that I make sure that happens for you, Julie. So.
Fantastic. Yeah. Love everybody at Simon & Schuster.
Why wouldn't Simon & Schuster want to have it at Warwick's of all places? Of course they would want to do it.
Right? That's what I'm saying. It's always a good place to come. So my question, this is just like a kind of a personal question, I guess. You chose to use initials as your name for the book. Was there something behind that we can share?
You'll have to ask the marketing department at Simon & Schuster. That's the way of saying that. So I'm learning how to write books, and I trust them to know how to sell books, I guess. So it wasn't something that you were like, I don't want my name on there. Yeah, I kind of find it. I kind of find it nice. I'm 52 years old now, and I'm, if someday after I write enough books and you know, the people recognize R.J. Hoffman's name, I won't have to be him. And I'm far too old to deal with that, right? And you know, the last event, my brother texted me and said, I think he called me dumb and boring. And I said, no, not in so many words. And that was RJ. It was RJ that did that.
I love it. You can have this whole alter ego going on. It's like, no, that was not me.
I pull it out when I need it, for sure.
My brother texted me too during one of my book events, actually the Warwick's one, and he said, smile. And I'm like,
come on, give me a break. But I love your brother's comment, RJ. It's like one of those things where it's like, hey, if the shoe fits, dude, you know.
My brother's very, just in case he logged on, he probably didn't, but he is very intelligent and very interesting.
Do you want to talk at all about the cover?
It's a great cover.
I think it's beautiful, and I think that's something that they asked me, do I have opinions about the covers, and I said I it's very
eye-catching. This
is the part, you know, that I care about.
Right. The stuff in the middle.
Words on it, right? And that was really important to me. And Mary Sue helped me make it better. And she respected the areas that I, you know, just kind of ignored her comments occasionally. She didn't bring it back up. But she asked me if I had opinions about the cover, and I said, you know how to sell books,
right?
And you know, when I page through Instagram, yes, now I'm on Instagram because I realize that's where all the readers are.
Right.
This kind of stands out, right? You don't there are books that are similar to it, but there's not many, and that's exciting.
Well, and to your point, Sarah, it is, it stands out. It's an eye-catching cover because as good as the words are in the middle, it has to have that, especially for us with bookstores,
you got to pick it up off the shelf.
Yeah, it has to catch somebody's eye and it's like, oh, getting somebody to read that flap is a big deal.
Well, and I hate to say it, but we also, like authors, unfortunately or fortunately, have to think about this airport sales, as crazy as that sounds, but people in the airport, they walk by and they're in a hurry and they want something good to read. So they do go to those covers.
Right. I mean, it's not like the old saying, you can't judge a book by its cover, but people do. People do. It's a fact. It's like not that a bad cover is necessarily going to bomb a book, but a good cover really does help a book. There's no question that does help. So another thing that we always like to do here is any authors that you'd like to lift up, or I know some people obviously need to buy your book, but is there somebody and your the Grandma McCain who's already read your book? Maybe there's another book that you need to read.
Got to have something to do, right? So what am I reading? Is that the question?
What are you reading? What have you loved lately that's like you want to lift somebody else up?
So Responsible Adults. A bunch of it's short stories by Patricia McNair. And none of the adults are responsible in that book, which of course makes
love the iconic title. That's great.
I just
are you there?
Where am I? Do you see me? There we
go.
Yep,
we see you. Yep.
All right. I just hit my keyboard as I put
my
daughter is from China, and this is kind of a timely book for people who care about what's going on in the 80s.
That was Interior Chinatown, right?
Yeah, Interior Chinatown.
And it's what did he win? Did he win what's the thing on there? Was it the Booker, or what is that on the front?
Won a bunch of stuff on this, I think. It's National Book Award winner.
National Book Award.
So that's an easy one. For the writers, I mean, you got to read The Purple Book. I hate
nothing like George Saunders.
I hate reading The Russians, but and I hated all those Russian stories in there. But then you get to hear George Saunders talk about them, and that is worth struggling through some Chekhov.
Well, and what don't you feel like you want to like audit his class? It's like, I mean, there's certain authors that it's just like that teach. It's just like, how do I get into that class? Because I want to.
Joe Mino, he was my thesis advisor. He's wrote about 10 novels, and he put this out last summer in the midst of a lot of things, right? And it's a nonfiction book, Between Everything and Nothing, about it's a nonfiction narrative related to the immigration in the United States. So again, very timely and a great writer. And then people I don't know, I read this one every couple years.
The Pearl?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because you just got to read The Pearl by Steinbeck every few years. So that's on my to-do list coming up. Right now I'm reading Toni Morrison's The Bluest Sky.
That's such a great book.
I've read like everything Toni Morrison, I kept on telling everybody that Beloved is her best book. And they said, well, you haven't read The Bluest Sky yet, obviously. And so I'm reading that. This is a strange one not everybody will like.
That's a twisty one, huh?
Yeah, isn't it? It's kind of like vacation beach read science fiction dystopia thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's got all kinds of.
And from a writer's perspective, I think it's got this narrative style that's very unique, which the breaks every point of view rule in the book and pulls it off.
So I'm taking it that you're not regretting your decision to quit everything and take this on as your project. Huh?
I get to read and write. Why would I regret that?
I know,
thank you, Mary Sue, and thank you, Harvey. Right? It's very exciting. One more.
Dark. Oh, that was so good. Wow.
This is like what I want my third novel to be like. Right?
Yeah. Wow. That is a super powerful.
Yeah. Sorry, Mary Sue. My second novel will be happier than this, but it won't be as good as that. It's the third one that you have to wait for that.
Yeah. Ohio was really a very powerful read.
It's by Stephen Markey.
Yeah. So good.
There's some
Jerry's on here. I missed the Nickel Boys.
Yeah,
Nickel Boys is
Whitehead.
Freaking great.
Yeah. He's just, I mean, talk about somebody that absolutely deserved those 2 awards back to back. It's like, come on.
Yeah. I got kind of hung up on the Underground Railroad, but this man, holy moly.
Well, the Underground Railroad, you had to kind of suspend yourself a little bit.
Suspend a lot.
Yeah. And so if you were able to do that, it was just like, but I get you on it, where this one was just a little bit more straightforward narrative where, well, Jerry's on here saying that my book is ordered. So there you go. Thanks, Jerry. Yay. And Grace wants to know how old your children are, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
My son is 19. He's a freshman at Iowa, and my daughter is a senior. She's 18.
Okay. So they had a tough year. Your daughter, especially being a senior last year, that was a tough time for.
And my son was the senior last year.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then he went to, and that was, he I think suffered from the pandemic more than anybody in our immediate family. Many people suffered a lot worse than my son. But then he went to school at Iowa, where they're not sure that there's a pandemic. So I think he's normal. I
have a friend who lives up in LA whose son goes to Iowa too.
I'm not sure they made the right decision, but I think he's had a pretty more normal than a lot of his friends.
Right. Same with my daughter. She's the same age as your son, and she's in college in Boston.
Okay.
So her senior year here was a little bit rough on all of us, I might say, because I'm like, wow, you're still here every day, all day. And then in Boston, it's not normal, but it's way closer than a lot of people are getting to normal at college,
I think we're getting there. Just keep everybody safe.
Yeah.
So, Sarah, for people who want to follow you or find out more about you, you have a website or social media, or where would you like to send people?
Sure. It's sarahzsleeper.com.
Okay. That's easy. And then they can find you in all your social media stuff there.
I'm not that good at social media, but I'm there.
Okay. Well, if they email you, will you email them back?
Yes, of course. Definitely.
That's always a good one. And what about you, RJ?
I am on Instagram at RJ Hoffman Writes.
Right. Okay.
And then I'm on Facebook. Just search for RJ Hoffman Author. then also some random RJ Hoffman writer, probably find me on Twitter as well. But,
Okay. And that's hard because you probably didn't get the domain name. So there's probably lots of RJ Hoffmans out there.
yes,
So it's either got writer or author.
RJ
Yeah.
Hoffman, I believe. So yeah, and by the way, I think Sarah was talking about a book club. I'm telling, because I'm a debut author and I have nothing else to do because we're in the middle of a pandemic and they have a Zoom account. Anybody that wants me to come annoy them at their book club, just send me an email.
That's a really good thing. How would they get in touch with you to do that? Do you have a website or?
With Twitter or
Okay.
Instagram. I have a website with a contact me form, and that's rjhoffman.com.
Yeah, that's usually the best thing is to send people to that website. So rjhoffman.com.
Any of those channels, I'd be happy to stop in, drink some wine, and ramble about my book. So
I love it.
Better than having an author at a book club. So that's so kind of you and
It is.
generous of you to spend your time doing that. It's really nice.
Book clubs, I'm telling you though, book clubs are the lifeblood of authors and bookstores. And I mean, there's nothing better than the power of a word of mouth with a book club. I mean, they are fantastic. And so any support and, going to visit it. Well, shall we hold the book up one more time? Oh my goodness.
You ought to. I'd like
Other people, yours was probably buried in that pile of books there.
got buried under Stephen Markey's monster.
Other People's Children. It's beautiful. It's a great book. Can't wait for the next one. Thank you for joining us.
It was so wonderful to be back in La Jolla, and very, very excited to be invited to be at Wildworks, and thank you for.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you, Sarah.
Discussion. Thank you guys both. Appreciate it a lot.
I'm going to take us off of Facebook and stop the recording. So good night, everybody, and go to warworks.com. And there's lots more events that you can see. We're doing this almost every day of the week, practically, it seems like. So anyways, it's always great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye, guys.